We are live on YouTube.
Yep.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Start video. All right, I'm here.
Got you loud and clear.
Hello, everybody.
Troy, how are you, sir?
I'm great, President. How's it going?
Good.
Oh.
Don't see Dan Schiffer yet, and I expected he would be on.
It's coming over right now.
Hello, Dan.
I'm here.
Good deal.
President Cavello, I think that's all that we're going to have for this side here.
No Jenny today?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay. Well, we'll see if Dick gets his camera and microphone turned on.
Is it snowing elsewhere or just here?
I think Ruben's getting some rain. We're still kind of dry here. We got some over the weekend, but we'd take any form of
Precipitation.
moisture we could get, I'll promise you.
Gentlemen, I can't get onto my video for some reason.
We can hear you.
Well, that might be the only thing you need to do is hear me. You don't want to look at me today.
Hey, Dick, did you you see the little three dots? Have you pulled that down?
Yep.
And nothing. Doesn't say start video.
Nope. It says full screen. Oh,
Look down at the bottom left-hand corner.
got it.
There.
There he is.
There it is.
There he is. There he is.
Wait, turn it off. Turn it off.
All right, I'm out of here.
All right, Nick, we might as well get rolling. I got 104.
President Cavello,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Torgerson,
Here.
Commissioner Bowl,
President.
Commissioner Schiffer,
Here.
Commissioner Broussard,
Here.
Vice President Rithaller,
Here.
Commissioner Cura,
Here.
Commissioner Francisco,
Here.
Commissioner Wildcat is absent. Senator Kolb, is also absent. Representative Davis
Here.
and Governor's Liaison, Mr. Lovinaw. I believe he is also absent. President Cavello, you have a quorum.
Fantastic, thanks. Let's move forward. We need to adopt the agenda.
Mr. President, I so move we adopt the agenda.
I'll
We have a-
second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Very good. The agenda has been adopted. Do we need to do the welcome and then the Pledge of Allegiance?
That is correct. Welcome to the April 28th, 2025 special meeting of the Wyoming Gaming Commission. The primary mission of the Wyoming Gaming Commission is the protection of the wagering public and the health, safety, and welfare of the participants in all lawful gaming and parimutuel activity. Individuals who wish to address the commission will be recognized and called on by the president to speak. After the president has recognized you, please clearly state your name and the name of the organization you represent prior to addressing the commission. All comments, questions, and responses must flow through the president by addressing the president each time you wish to speak. This procedure ensures an orderly flow of discussion during the commission meeting. All meetings of the governing body of an agency are public meetings open to the public, except as otherwise provided pursuant to Wyoming Statute 16.403A. This meeting is being held via Zoom and is available to watch via video streaming on the YouTube link on our website and on the agenda. The commission may open an executive session pursuant to Wyoming Statute 16.405A. Inclusion on the agenda does not necessarily constitute a commission action.
Thank you, Director Larramendi. We appreciate that. Now we'll go with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for putting that up, Nick.
That's awful nice. Thanks, Nick. We appreciate that. And I'm sorry to get a little bit out of order there. Jumped ahead with the agenda. So we'll move right on to the Gaming Commission rules, item number 3. Nick, would you lead us through that, please?
Thank you, President Cavello. Just a little bit of background. During the last commission meeting, you all heard some testimony from the state vet, Dr. Hazel, about the possibility of the need to adopt or change our testing requirements for Coggins. During that meeting, I was asked to put together, the possibility of some emergency rules to change that. Currently under commission rules, it's within 12 months of entering the racetrack, and we were looking at reducing that time down to, 60 or 90 days. In your packet, you will see the entire certification of emergency rules. That includes the certification page, the memo that would be drafted and sent to the governor explaining the emergency, as well as the explanation of the emergency. I'll go through that real quickly. It says, set forth in the statement of principal reasons, the commission adopts these emergency rules in response to a high and concerning number of positive EIA, Coggins, AG, ID, or ELISA throughout the quarter horse race industry. These rules follow extensive discussions with the Wyoming State Veterinarian, as well as with the USDA APHIS Veterinary Services. These rules are brought as an emergency rules to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the horses during the 2025 live racing season. The commission is also in the process of promulgating regular rules to replace the emergency rules once expired. If you go down to page 23 in your packet, you will see the underlined and the striped copy of the 2 changes that this proposed rule would do. It'd be on line 12, page 23. II, a negative EIA, Coggins, AGID, or ELISA test result is required to be on file with the racing office from a test taken between April 24th, 2025 and June 27th, 2025 for any horse to participate in a live horse race that takes place between June 28th, 2025 and October 31st, 2025. The second part, starting on line 16, is III, a negative Thalaria equi pyroplasmosis CELISA test. Result is required to be on file with the racing office from a test taken between April 24th, 2025 and June 27th, 2025 for any horse to participate in a live horse race that takes place between June 28th, 2025 and October 31st, 2025. You'll see the strike language is within the 12 months prior to arrival. The current rule just reads a negative EIA test is required within 12 months prior to arrival. Same thing with the pyro test, a negative pyroplasmosis test is required within 12 months prior to arrival. A couple of days ago, I shared with you all some of the research that we have done in regards to this rule change. That includes testing requirements in other jurisdictions. Currently, right now, the state of Texas requires it within 12 months. The state of Oklahoma also requires it within 12 months. California is within 12 months. Kansas is within 12 months. Iowa is within 12 months. Minnesota is within 12 months. Maryland is within 12 months. And Massachusetts is within 12 months. The only one that I could locate that has a sooner timeline is the state of New Mexico, and theirs is 30 days in order to gain entry onto any parimutuel track. Along with that, I also shared with you all, I think maybe 5 emails that we had received in regards to public comment on this. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at all those. They didn't make it into the packet because the packet was already published before all the emails came in. But briefly, since then, I've received about 5 more emails. All of them basically say the same thing. There's several of them that really don't have a problem with the commission looking at changing the 12-month requirement to making that shorter. The concern that most of the horsemen have right now is the lack of notice right now. With races starting on the 16th of May, a lot of these horsemen have already secured their tests, and they would be outside of that window, the April 24th window. Some of them would be outside of that window just by like a week. Others would be 2 or 3 weeks. These tests run about $150 a piece. So it's a pretty substantial cost to the horseman. I had one gentleman call me on Friday, and I spoke to him for a while. He has 30 horses in his barn. So he would be looking at about $4,500 to $5,000 in getting all new tests because he's 2 weeks outside of the way that rule would be written. He'd be 2 weeks outside of it. So I'd stand for any questions on this and hoping to just have a good discussion and see kind of where we're at with this.
Director Laramendi, my first question would be, as this emergency test is rewritten, that it would be 60 days prior, and then once you're within the state and you have done that, then you're good for the rest of the year. Is that correct? Or is this saying every 60 days?
So this would be, well, for this one right here, the way that it is written, it would be for this race season, the test would have to be done between April 24th through June 27th. Because of the timing of this and the fact that we already have horses on the ground up in Gillette. So we're going to miss that entire first race meet. So really the way that this was crafted was to give that 60-day window. June 27th is actually the Friday before we start running in Evanston. So they'd make it all the way through Gillette, and then this would take place during the Evanston meet. But it would be the 60 days prior to Evanston starting, and then once you get that 60-day test, then that would carry them through the remainder of the year. The way the rules are written now, they have to have these tests prior to hitting the very first track, and then once they hit the first track, then that carries through. Does that answer your question, sir?
Thank you. I saw someone else with their hand up. Vice President Ritholler.
Yes, thank you, President Cavella. My question is, and I haven't heard of it, and I'm sure we would have, we haven't had a positive Coggins in Wyoming since when?
President Cavello, Vice President Ritholler, I'm gonna have Dr. Hazel answer that question here,
Okay,
because I don't know the answer. I can tell you that we don't currently have any positive cases in Wyoming. But she can definitely speak to that better than I can.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Hazelnut. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
We can,
Okay, good.
indeed.
President Cavello, thank you. Thank you, board, for allowing me to speak about this. So yes, our last positive was actually last year in Wyoming in 2024. We had an EIA positive piroplasmosis and EIA horse at the same horse was positive for both Piro and EIA. The reason behind this, and let me back up a little bit. So I totally support being able to have a rule that would allow us to change the date as necessary. For example, if we had some positive horses in a barn, we could change the testing requirement to a 60-day test requirement versus having it only good for a year. But to explain the whole purpose behind this, there have been EIA outbreaks, as you know and you've read, in California and Texas last fall. Unfortunately, those investigations are ongoing. And if you notice, we had 2 EIA positive horses in Colorado that were identified last week. Those are both relating back to quarter horse racehorses. The mare, unfortunately, was at the clinic in Texas, where a lot of these horses were being treated. And due to iatrogenic transmission, meaning there were some contaminated equipment at the clinic, this mare was infected at the clinic. The gelding that was infected was in with a barn of racing quarter horses and was also a racing quarter horse, just hadn't raced. So there are still issues out there. We know that we have bush tracks very close to us in Utah and Colorado. And we know that we also have a lot of these same people that are helping to race on our tracks in Wyoming. Thankfully, and I am so thankful to hear that the Gaming Commission has been proactive in this and has identified people that we know shouldn't be racing on our tracks and made them aware of that situation. But that being said, initially we asked for a 60-day test requirement to identify horses that are non-clinical EIA cases in our racing barns and on our facilities. With the timing of this situation and the fact that we already have horses at the tracks, we understand that might not be the best move for our racing season this year. But we would support being able to have a rule that allows us to change those dates as necessary, whether it's the emergency rule or the way the rule might be worded to begin with. But just for the fact that if we happen to see or happen to have EIA positive horses in our barns that are clinical, that we can then change that test date, even if it's midway through the season, to require them to have either a 30 or a 60-day test. So that's just something to keep in mind should this happen to occur during our racing season. So now that I think I probably confused everybody, there's my clarification.
So Dr. Hazel,
Thank you.
would I be correct in assuming that you would be supportive of us maybe putting a permanent rule in place to allow a change if need be, but to let the this season go as the rule stands?
That is correct. That is not how we would like to be proactive, but we completely understand that the racing season is already about to be underway. We have horses in the barns. This would have been great if we could have done it a few months ago, but understanding the way rules work, sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. So yes, you are correct in that stance. Yes.
President Cavello, Representative Davis, I think we lost your audio. Representative Davis has his hand up.
Yes, Representative Davis, please.
Yes, Mr. President. This is to the state vet there. What protocol do you currently have power to do currently? What's within your reach if something was like this was to occur? Do you currently have I guess the power to order all these tests ASAP, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, that'd be my question.
President and Representative Davis. So the way it is right now, like the Coggins positive issue or EIA positive issue is primarily an equine racing quarter horse, and a few thoroughbreds, but it's a racing quarter horse industry issue. It is not an equine industry issue per se. As a state veterinarian, there are certain rules that we can, emergency rules that we can do, yes. However, where this is a very specific issue, being the equine racing industry, a lot of the rules fall back on the tracks themselves or whoever governs those tracks. So that what we do, it impacts the entire equine industry, not just one portion of it. I could, for example, say everything at this track, but really that's more of a gaming commission or a racetrack issue, not a statewide issue in this situation. And we would ask that all of the tracks have that same rule. So if we had, if we noted that there was one barn at a track that had several positive cases, we would want a 30 or a 60-day test that impacted all of the tracks in Wyoming for whatever that racing season might be. So yes, we can do emergency rules, but this is a very industry-specific issue.
Follow up, Mr. President?
Please, go ahead, Mr. David.
Yeah, I mean, this disease affects all our, you're saying just currently the racing situation, but what about these giant team roping deals, the barrel racing, things that we hear going on, you know, weeks? I guess I'm a little concerned about that because, you know, two of these tracks could possibly have an event like that before or after we get there. So that would be, how do you address that?
Certainly, Mr. President and Representative Davis. So as stated, this is an industry issue. And if you look at the data that USDA has given us, the majority of all these horses that are EIA positive in the last 3 years are racing quarter horses strictly, period. And we have asked, and many states have done this, we have asked that the racing industry take on this challenge and try to correct it within their ranks regarding the EIA adjournment spread. So in most of these barns, the spread is from dirty needles. It's not from anything else except that. Strictly dirty needles, blood doping, transferring blood. One of the primary ways it's been spread in California is that whichever horse wins, that horse wins, they take blood from that horse and immediately put it in the race to the horses that are racing that day, period. And that's become a common practice. It's a cultural practice. You take the horse that wins, you take their blood and you put it into the next horse that you're racing out of your team. So we've asked the industry to please take on this challenge and correct it within themselves. We've also asked a lot of the event centers in our state to make Coggins tests required to compete at their event center. For example, the one in Casper requires a negative Coggins test. Frontier Days requires a negative Coggins test. So a lot of the events that we have that are not quarter horse racing already require a negative test. But this is very, very specific to the racing industry.
Thank you.
President Cabello, I also have Mr. Wade Johnson has his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, your floor. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, okay. I guess I was just getting on in support of not changing the rule right now. Some of the things that Dr. Hazel said is I would agree with. Others, I'm not so sure I do. I think it's been a problem for years. If you look back through the USDA reports, 2019, 89 cases, 23, 61, 22, 84. Last year, from what I can find a report on that, but from what I could find, there was, 91 to 100 and something. I couldn't get the exact numbers. But the problem's been there for a long time. And these other racetracks, except for what Nick was saying, Sunray Park I found was 30 days. But even at that, they didn't change their pyroplasmosis. It's still 2 years there. Ruidoso, from what I could find, is still a year, but I haven't talked to the commission, and Nick probably has, so they probably are 30 days. But I don't think that's just changing it to a 60-day Coggins is going to solve our problem. I think it's has to be what you guys did with eliminating the match horses. I think that was a big step. The other one is going to be regulation of the people once the horses are on the racetrack, maybe a little more security that things are not being done other than the veterinarians doing it. And then even with the veterinarians, making sure that they're doing good sterile technique in all that they do and stuff. I guess I'm not a big fan of changing it to 60 days this year. I don't think we'll change much with our incidence of it or anything else. If we do it next year, okay, people can have a shot at getting things done in that time frame. But I myself have gone out and I've done, 100, 150 head of horses with their Coggins and Pyros on them. And there's quite a few of those that fall outside the 60-day range. And we did it before we knew anything like this was going to happen. So I'm not against the Coggins test. I think that's a good thing. But I do think that we need to give a little more heads up for the horsemen to get it done. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. And for just further clarification with regards to your credentials, that's Dr. Wade Johnson, DVM, correct?
Yeah, I've been racetrack vet for 20 years there, Wyoming.
Do we have anything from anyone else?
President Cavella, we have Commissioner Bull and Commissioner Torgerson, and I also
see them
have
both.
Mr. Spiva.
Commissioner Bull.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nick, if we had some positive Coggin tests, I don't know, during the first couple races in Gillette, under our current regulatory code, what could we do to address that? What would we do with the regulations that we've got now?
President Cavello, Commissioner Bull, so if we had a Coggins outbreak at one of the tracks now, that would force us to really lock that track down and trying to think the right word. Keep all of those horses. What's the word I'm looking for?
Quarantine.
Quarantine. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we'd have to quarantine all those horses, and then we would be working with the state vet and doing contact tracing and trying to find all that stuff out. So if it gets introduced to the track, it'll be bad.
It'll be catastrophic.
Yeah.
And we have the authority to do that now under our regulatory scheme?
Yeah, if one popped positive on the racetrack, then that's what we would have to do. We would be forced to do that. Yes. So as it stands right now, though, they have to have a negative test within 12 months. Now it says 12 months, but it is, a lot of these horsemen, when they plan their stuff out, like we're not getting a test. We have horses on the grounds right now up in Gillette. Those folks aren't working on a test that was taken 11 and a half months ago. Those tests were probably taken within, a month or two, because they're at other tracks, whether it be in Montana or Utah, Idaho. So they're not, even though it says 12 months out, the tests that these horses have to get onto the track, they're not normally that old. I would say they're probably 3 to 4 months out usually.
Okay. So if we were to see some positive tests, we would be able to take actions to minimize the damage, I guess is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, if we saw a positive test, if we saw a positive test prior to entrance, they wouldn't even be allowed on the grounds.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowe. We'll go next to Commissioner Schiffer and then Commissioner Torgerson.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, this is really a tough issue, and I'm going to talk a little bit longer than I might ought to, but if we do have a positive test, that's going to affect a number of horses, at least a number of horses that would be in the barn with that horse. So if we have 10 barns on the track, 10% of your horses are going to be confined and quarantined and not able to run. Whether or not they survive or not, that's a different question. But, you know, it's going to be very catastrophic to our horse numbers if this does happen. And, you know, looking at the different rules, you know, and we're talking horses coming from Montana, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, none of which we looked at their rules to see what their requirements are. So, you know, I don't think we can go by other states. I think we have to look at our situation, our limited number of supply of horses, and how best to get our meets to come off successfully. And really, this is the operator's problem, not our problem. Our problem is to do the rules. And in my perspective, this is a financial issue. The owners don't want to put up the $150 to redo the test. So somebody is going to have to subsidize this problem if we're going to go forward. And in my mind, part of that should be the operators of the racetracks who need these horses as part of their inventory. Whether or not the Racing Commission can in any way subsidize the problem is a second issue. But you know, it's a practical problem. It's not some out in the wild hearsay problem. It's really, you know, if it happens, it's going to be devastating to our race meet for the year. And, you know, the more as time goes on and there's more of this bush track racing, the more real this problem becomes. And the numbers that we were given of how many incidences there was is climbing drastically. So, you know, we just can't roll the roulette wheel and hope for the best here. We need to try to figure out a solution that works for everybody to do our best to not allow this problem to come to pass. I think it's just a dangerous issue we've got going on here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Torgerson.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I had a couple of conversations with veterinarians about this, and their feelings, I think, were a little bit similar to the gentleman we had speak here a little bit ago, and that they didn't feel like that we had an emergency here, and that the problem lies kind of within that bush racing scene, and trying to get anybody out there in that scene to change what they're doing that's where the difficulty lies. And I know that what we're trying to prevent is any of those infected animals from infecting what we have in the, you know, I guess on the legitimate tracks, for lack of a better word, but that they didn't feel like shortening the time period or changing these rules would have much effect on the current people that we have racing here in Wyoming, other than that it would increase their costs significantly, or has the potential to significantly increase their costs, which they were afraid might actually force them out. And, you know, we don't need to be forcing out any horses here. We need to keep as many of them around as we can. So I guess I would agree with Commissioner Bowe in that if we did enforce a different rule like this, that maybe we do need to find some way to alleviate those costs or help with that. But I guess right now I'm kind of against changing our rules at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner Torgerson. Is there anyone else who'd like to have the floor?
President Covello, I've got 3 hands on the public side. Mr. Spiva was the first one up.
Let's go with Mr. Spiva first. George, the floor is yours.
President Covello, Executive Director Laramendi, Commissioners. From what I hear from the horsemen is that not only is this going to be quite an expense, most of those horses, especially the 2-year-olds, have been away in training and had their tests probably in November, December. The older horses probably January or February. I would agree with what Dr. Johnson said. And probably the first time in my life, I would probably disagree with Commissioner Schiffer. The racetrack's only obligation is to make sure that every test, everything that is required is turned into the racing office. And I think that that ought to be reiterated to the operators and all of their staff that these tests absolutely have to be in. I know that falls through the cracks occasionally, but as far as having the operators pitch in on these, I think it's actually a horseman's, the owner's responsibility. And that's pretty much what I've got to say. Any questions?
Anyone with any questions for Mr. Spiva? If not, Nick, who's next?
President Covello, I got Mr. Joyce.
Mr. Joyce. Eugene, how are you today?
Just fine, Mr. President. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So the question is for Dr. Hazel and again for Executive Director Laramendi. My understanding is the outbreak is caused, or the transmission is caused by dirty needles. It's not aerosol or what have you. And so my question is, if there was a positive, what would that quarantine look like? Director Laramendi said there'd be contact tracing, which is what you want to figure out is if this trainer or some other trainer or who started this ball rolling. And then would the whole barn area have to be quarantined or that specific animal? How would the quarantine look like? So please, if you could tell me exactly how it's transmitted, and then what would the quarantine look like if there was a positive at the racetrack?
President Covello, I will refer that to our great state vet.
Fantastic. We'll refer to
smarter
Dr.
than
Hazel, and at this point, we will also note that Commissioner Wildcat has joined.
Thank you very much. This is Dr. Hazel, President and others. So speaking about that, if there was a positive equine found in a barn, everything in that barn is quarantined for retest, which can be usually within a 60-day time period, 30 to 60-day retest. We then test first, we have the positive animal, then we test other cohorts, meaning anything else under that trainer, owner, groomer, etc. is tested next. And then because of transmission by biting flies, typically everything within a radius of that equine is tested. So we would test everything else within that barn. And then depending upon the location of the other barns, may test all the other barns as well for an initial test. Based on epidemiology of those animals, we would then determine who has to have the quarantine and retest in 30 to 60 days. Quarantine meaning they can't be commingled with any other known negative horses during that time period. So no further events, nothing else during that time period until they test negative.
Thank you, Dr. Hazel. Eugene, did you have a follow-up?
Yes. So we've had some experience in the past with this when we did have the outbreak of a bunch of horses with pyroplasmosis, and it was at Sweetwater Downs. And so, this falls not only on the state, but on the track operator to enforce these quarantines and to figure it out. I know that what we did there, we did have barns available to move them out of the general population of the barn area. So we had for want of a better word, a quarantine barn at that time. So I just bring that up because Commissioner Shiffers, that it does fall. I mean, it is a financial consequence not only to the horse owner, but to the track operator, and I'd say probably the state as well. So, as far as implementing the testing right now, I do want to concur with Mr. Spiva and Wade Johnson that most of the horses that are going to be racing have been tested quite recently. I know that I have quarter horses in Oklahoma that are going to be shipping up to race here in Wyoming. That they will have brand new Coggins and pyroplasmosis before leaving. I can tell you that. So I'm, plan for the worst and hope for the best. But I think that this is a cultural thing. It's certain bad actors that are doing bad things, and we have been addressing this since the pyroplasmosis outbreak, and I know we'll continue to do so as an industry. And with that, I'm happy to stand for questions. But thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Is there anyone with any questions for Mr. Joyce at this time? If not, let's move on to the next person with their hand up, Nick.
President Covello, Mr. Johnson, Dr. Johnson, if you would just hang on for a second and have Vice President Rithaler next.
Thank you, President. My question is, how long after you have an infection, be it a bite and fly or a bad needle or blood packing or whatever how soon does the test show up that they are positive? Is that immediately, or is it a 60-day incubation period?
Dr. Hazel?
This is Dr. Hazel, yes. And to address that, President and others, that's highly dependent upon the infective dose. So we've had some horses that can show up within 2 weeks, depending upon the level of infection they have. Some of them you're looking at over 30 days. So that's why we recommend a test within a 60-day time period, is that sometimes that 30-day time period may not catch everybody if the infective dose was low, versus that 45-day time period will. So depending upon the infective dose, it could be anywhere from less than 10 days to up to 60 days before that horse may end up with a actual positive status on the EIA test.
Commissioner Wildcat? You
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up quickly on that. Just a follow-up question on that. So do you recommend that the quarantine time period be that full 60 days?
This is Dr. Hazel, President, again, addressing the group. So we recommend it really depends upon the epidemiology of the respective situation. In most cases, our quarantine is for 60 days for 60-day retest of those specific horses. But it also depends upon the epidemiology. If we can say that it's located within, specifically, it's just one trainer that has an issue, one barn that has an issue, it could be down to a 30 to 45-day quarantine. It's just based upon the risk of that situation, but 60 days is our maximum usually, unless there are more horses found at that 60-day test.
Perfect. Commissioner Wildcat, do you have a follow-up? Good. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess my question is, and I probably should know this, but what's the turnaround time for a test from when you, extract and then get the results back?
Certainly, this is Dr. Hazel again. Typically, we can have that test in 24 to 48 hours.
Nick,
President
are there any other hands raised out there?
President Cavello, I got Dr. Johnson here.
Oh, yes, Dr. Johnson, go ahead.
President, thank you. And I'm just going to address one thing. Once those horses are on the racetrack, they've had their Coggins to get on there, they are not tested again unless they show signs of the disease. So we're not going to pick up any horses that come on the track and find a new or run a new Coggins test on that horse unless he has showed signs of the disease while he is on the track, or his Coggins expires. Then that is, they have to have another drawn if it's going to expire while there. So as far as picking up, just out of the blue, picking up a positive Coggins on the racetrack doesn't happen. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you very much. Nick, do we have any other hands raised?
President Cavello, I got Ms. Koltiska as well.
Please give the floor to Ms. Randy, your floor. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay, sorry, I'm traveling, but I just wanted to say, as staff, we've researched this quite a bit and had a lot of conversations with the state vet, Mrs. Hazel, and the USDA, and we really appreciate everything that they've input here. And it really is an issue within the racing industry, and we know that. That's why we do want to look into staff really would like to look into drawing up new rules. One thing that we need to make sure of is, we have these tests, but at the gate, I think part of the problem is at the gate, these operators are not, or not, it's not that they're not, but that we need to have more security there checking to make sure these horses that are coming in are the right horses and that they do have Coggins. That will fall back onto the operators and their security that they hire at these tracks. And that's why one of our main things is that we've talked with these operators about was to make sure that when these horses come on the grounds that they are checked to make sure they have the right paperwork. That's one thing I think that we did fall short on, is the security at the gate, which that's why with the operators on this call, why it is so important that we make sure we do that. As far as what Dr. Hazel said is that they know that this is a problematic time for us to try to do this once everybody's already pulled their Coggins, which I do feel that probably is a hardship on them. If we do have the biosecurity, if something happens, we do have that. Each track has that in rules or in protocols that they turn in. So we do have that for each operator. So I just want to let you guys know that. And as far as the Coggins, we do know that it's important. We do feel, and staff, along with Executive Director Laramendi, do feel that we need to start doing rules that would allow us to start each year to where we can kind of determine what the industry needs at that point, or what the outbreaks are, and work with the state vet. And that's why we would like to go forward changing the rules to develop something like that would give us an option, as well as if there's an outbreak there that we can make it be 30 days by the next meet. But right now, if an outbreak occurs, we're going to have an outbreak can occur at any racetrack across the country right now, and they just do the biosecurity. So I guess with that, I would stand for any questions.
Any questions for Randy at this point?
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other hands raised at this point, Director Laramendi?
President Cavello, we got Commissioner Broussard and Commissioner Schiffer. And I also have Miss Laycock for Wyoming Downs.
Okay, so we'll go with the two commissioners first. Mr. Broussard.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. So I think this conversation is due. We need to have more of it. It's been educational. But for the item at hand, the emergency rules, I'm not sure that's the answer to our problem right now. So I'd like to make a motion to table the emergency rules if it's appropriate to do now.
Okay, I can accept that motion. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Bull. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So that opens us up for discussion. Commissioner Schiffer.
Thank you, President Covello. You know, I know the easy solution is to just let this thing go and wing it. But what Brandy is talking about, if I understood her, and that was kind of where I jumped in, the biosecurity is what Dr. Hazel is talking about. In other words, you start from the horse that has the problem and you reach out from there as far as you have to, and you put those in that range under quarantine for as long as you need to determine whether or not they've been infected, as well as the individual that you've identified. And so that can involve a massive amount of horses and a massive amount of your participants in the, you know, in your race meet and the race meets that are going to go forward down the road. So, you know, you can play roulette here, but you're not listening to the scientist, Dr. Hazel, who is an expert on this and telling you that you need to anticipate that because of what's happening in the industry below the surface, this problem is growing exponentially. And to just ignore it and hope that we're not going to have it happen in Wyoming is not grounded in science or reason. And you know, nobody likes to have to spend money, but when you jump into the horse racing industry, you know you're going to spend money. That's the name of the game. You spend money you didn't think you'd have to spend, and you spend money that goes nowhere. But you know, if you completely ruin your race meet, and maybe the race meet's going down the road, everybody is going to be negatively affected. We're all going to get a ton of bad publicity, and a lot of horses are going to die, and there's going to be a lot of financial hardship. So now is the time to head off that potential. And it's, you know, nobody knows exactly what the number is, what the percentage is, but it's a real problem, and it has devastating consequences if it arises. And we've got tons of quarter horses coming from states where bush racing is happening. And so it's a very realistic possibility that we're going to be affected by that. So because it's the easy solution doesn't seem to me to be the right reasoning here for us as the racing commission, who are charged with, you know, looking out for all the people that are participating, the horses that are participating, and all the licensees that are under our purview. We need to look after them and do the right thing here, and that's not to table these rules. It's to try to figure out a way to enact the rules that everybody can deal with it and live with it. And, you know, nobody wants, I didn't hear any Mr. Joyce talk about wanting to put up $5,000 from his organization to help defray these costs, because nobody's going to do that, because you think, well, I'm going to play the roulette wheel until, you know, it's all gone. But that's not our jobs here. Our job's to protect the public, the horses, and the participants. So we need to really think this thing through before we just jump off the wagon. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schiffner. Is there anyone else? Further discussion with regards to the motion on the floor?
President Covello, Representative Davis has his hand up.
I'm sorry, Representative Davis, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get this straight in my mind here. If we have the Coggins tests on all the horses in the barn, does that guarantee us that that outbreak will not occur, is my question.
I think the only one qualified to answer that would be Dr. Hazel.
This is Dr. Hazel. Sorry, and President Representative Davis. As has been stated during the call, the time frame from when the Coggins test was taken to when those horses are on the track is variable at this point in time. It could have been 60 days ago, it could have been 2 weeks ago. The most important thing we can do right now, of course, is to make a negative Coggins test required within a certain number of days prior to entry on the tracks. Beyond that, once that test is pulled, you can't guarantee that any horse is going to be negative 30 days later. That's not a guarantee for anything, but it's the most effective thing we can do as far as preventing Coggins or EIA on our tracks is to set our test date requirements for an EIA test. It's the best biosecurity we have at the moment is the time frame of when that test was taken. And I know there are others out there that may have a different answer to that. But as far as preventing it from occurring in any other way other than what the Gaming Commission is already doing in trying to keep some of the bush track folks out and the use of needles and syringes and other medications, I think all of that plays into part here as well. All the actions that are already being taken, the rules that are already in place. So I think it's, to this point, we've done all we can do in setting those test requirements.
Are there any other hands raised or any other discussion with regards to the motion on the floor?
President Covello, just to clarify Commissioner Schiffer's point, I think that this motion to table this is just tabling the emergency rule. That doesn't stop us from looking at changing this rule to be flexible and working with the state vet moving forward. That's just going to take out this emergency rule part of it and trying to get this in place after the season has started. But staff is still going to continue working with Dr. Hazel and the USDA to formulate some rules that have some flexibility moving forward so we can monitor this. And, if the circumstances say 30 days, then we'll have that flexibility. If it says 90 or 120 days, we'll have that flexibility. That's really what my goal is moving forward. I just wanted to make sure that was understood, that this doesn't just put it to bed forever.
Right.
Director Laramendi, thank you. Vice President Ritholler. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you, President. I just was going to add what Nick just said, Director Laramendi said. That's what my question was. If you test them 2 days before the race, they could have had it a week earlier before they showed up at the track. So I was kind of going to say that when we say we're tabling this, I think it's something we need to keep looking at. And it sounds like there's a sweet spot. Maybe 12 months is too long. It's got to be kind of, if they leave the state or come into the state, there ought to be a time frame. And because this is a serious problem. This isn't something we ought to just take lightly. One question I do have, the one Wyoming horse did get it when they investigated, it was picked up in Texas, or was it picked up in Wyoming? And Dr. Hazel would probably be able to answer that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Hazel.
Thank you. This is Dr. Hazel again. And so to that point, the horse that we had was picked up in Wyoming. The horse was illegally imported into Wyoming, was caught by a brand inspector when they went to get brand papers for the horse, came in without a CBI, without an EIA test, and it was picked up in Wyoming. However, that horse had actually been smuggled into the United States through New Mexico, then to Texas, was sold to a well-known roper in Texas and then sold to Wyoming. And I should have added this a while back. The majority of horses that come in that are positive are quarter horse race horses. The second largest class are horses that are smuggled into the U.S. as race horses or competitive horses.
Thank you. Next up, Commissioner Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, Dan, I'm going to vote for the motion. And I wanted to explain to you and the commissioners why I am. And, you know, I hear you. I hear you that we are taking a risk. But I think the risk is manageable. And my questions were directed towards what's the worst case scenario if we do have Coggins showing up on a track, what's going to happen? And it won't be good, but it also sounded to me like it would be manageable, that we would be able to work through it and come out with a racing season of some extent. So I'm going to vote for this motion, and with the idea that we're going to keep working on it, see what we can come up with. But the lack of notice to the horsemen, you know, rings true with me, and I think we need to listen to that. So for that reason, Mr. President, I am going to vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowe. Are there any other hands raised from the commissioner out there from the public, Nick?
President Cavillo, I got no more hands.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, we will consider the motion on the floor. Once again, to reiterate the motion, it is at this time to table the motion, to table the emergency rules, certainly not to forget them, but to table them at this time. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, I have one nay and 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 ayes. 8 ayes.
Eight ayes, 1 nay.
8 to 1. Okay, the motion is tabled. Nick, you will continue to move forward with this particular subject because obviously something we are still very concerned with, and working with Dr. Hazel in finding the appropriate, rule to give them the opportunity to act as quick as possible when need be, and certainly to implement the biosecurity measures that we've been talking about.
President Cavillo, that is correct. I will continue working with Dr. Hazel and Mr. Kaler, and we'll come up with some good language that gives us that flexibility moving forward, and I'll have something very soon for you. One other thing outside of this that I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware of, you know, a lot of this does stem from, like Dr. Hazel said, this stems from the illegal match races and the bush tracks. You all had changed the rule in our Chapter 2 rules last year to make participation in those events a corrupt practice. With that being said, I think we have made strides to try to get this taken care of where it needs to be taken care of as well. So you'll be seeing something in the future when it comes to violations of those kind of rules in the very near future, actually. So just keep that in mind, that the illegal bush tracks and the match racing plays hand in hand with this situation, and they're one and the same, really. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Nick.
Very good, thank you. Is there any need for an executive session?
President Cavillo, I do not believe so.
Okay. If no one has anything else for the meeting, we'll stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye.